Hello, hello, wherever you are in the world. My name is Agnes van Rhijn. I am a life and business reinvention mentor at Success on Your Own Terms, and I am the founder of the Woman Who Makes Things Happen show. Today, it is my pleasure to be interviewing Antiqua Lisha. Antiqua is a visibility specialist, and she is the founder and CEO of Your Own University, a directory and community for women seeking to reclaim their power to find their ideal coach. In 2011, Antiqua was awarded one of America's premier experts in self-care for her work with women overcoming childhood abuse. She now hosts a weekly radio show, Rhijn, and she is the best-selling author of her book From Bondage to Happiness. She's a regular contributor to many magazines, speaker and coach. Her unique programs, Rising Star Program and Divine in 9, is her step-by-step systems to take you from letting your past rule you to owning your power and allowing it to serve you, and that you can take all the way to the bank. Antiqua, welcome to the Woman Who Makes Things Happen show. How are you?
I am wonderful, and yes, thank you so much for having me. Thank you, everybody, for being here. It's so good to talk to you today.
So it's an exchange of, I would say, interview, because you did interview me at some point.
I did, which was such a blessing.
So tell me more about, well, I know a bit more about you, but tell the listeners more about your story. How did it all started?
So how it all started, that goes way back, but really the short end of the stick and the most important part of it is when I was coming out of a very tumultuous first 13 years of my life, full of physical abuse. I had an epiphany, and God, for lack of a better word, what I understood is Jesus was standing in front of me as I was bawling my eyes out at the brink of yet another abuse situation, and saying, I can't do this anymore. I'm done. I'm out. I was 13. And he said, go home and tell. And somehow this energy came into me. And I walked home and I told. And my stepdad, who was my adopted dad, he, even though he had abused me, he heard. And he went and he defended me. And within a couple days, my dad was doing a few things, and we went into a back room, and I said, how would you like it if I went to your work and said what you did to me? Because he was calling people at my school and dads, and just it was embarrassing for me. Mm-hmm. And my mom overheard. She was standing outside. She overheard I wouldn't like that conversation. And we walked out, and she said, tell me about it. And I told her, and she goes, I heard that before. And I said, yeah, I told you when it was happening.
Mm-hmm. She
didn't want to know at that time, but a couple years later, she wanted to know. And within a week, we were out of that situation, and the abuse stopped, and the conversation started on both sides of the family, and healing began. Mm-hmm. And I began to come home and find home. So very much in my family. And then I went through my teens. And I had every reason to be angry and upset and rebellious. And I was an overachiever, did really well in school and did all of that stuff. Then when I was 21, I got cancer. And that brought me home. Home in the sense of home into me. Mm-hmm. Looking at my temple. How do I care for my temple? And that threw me into my adrenals failed at 24, and I went from running and biking and doing major events to not being able to walk up a flight of steps.
Wow.
And I gained weight in like 2 weeks. It was horrible. Basically what happened when I was 11 finally caught up to me. Mm-hmm. And so that was an emotional breakdown. I had to learn how to manage my emotions because I was like a firecracker all over the place. And so I started learning about my emotional being and my vibration. And I was already studying the chakras. I'd been studying with Carolyn Mace since I was 13 years old. I was around that language and yoga.
Yeah, so you were already in there.
And I was raised Catholic, so the mystical was an open place for me. And then I had mystical experiences, like I said, when I was 11, or 13. So learning this was very fun for me. And I started teaching it and leading yoga classes and leading meditations and leading these things because I had been doing this work since I was 13. So by then about 10 years. And so that happened. My adrenals got better. We got reset. I started walking. I started teaching. I started thriving there. And then boom, I got hit with depression.
Oh, wow.
And I got to see the vibration of, here's my emotions. But what kind of controls my emotions, at least at the time, now I know more, was this story that I was saying in my head. And I remember I was about 30, right before we found out I had celiac disease, or we knew I had celiac, but what celiac was. So I wasn't not eating gluten and wheat. So it was affecting me biochemically, which was helping me be depressed so I could learn about thinking and the power of our mind for my clients. And I was sitting in the shower, and again, I was ready for it to be over. And it was like I stepped outside of myself, and I could see the drain going down the drain. And I'm like, I can think this way and tell myself all these things about myself, even though, like, my parents told me, my husband was telling me, ex-husband, horrible stuff, all about, I could agree with that. Or I could agree with what I'm hearing from spirit and what I'm hearing from what's inside of me, because that relationship was really strong still. And I made a choice, and I started being my own best friend. And the last 10 years of my life, with those 3 foundational pieces of what I now call the 6 personal power zones within my books, my programs, when I got a hold of those, it was like, there's success, there's brilliance. And from that place, I started putting together my programs and my teacher trainings and all of that. I started to decide who I was in relationship. And then I stepped into this purpose and the success of really celebrating who you are, no matter what the hell your story is. If anybody has like an excuse to be upset, like, I get it. I could have been upset for the rest of my life. I was standing in the kitchen, and my ex-husband said, you could be angry for the rest of your life and have every right, absolutely every right, and you have chosen not to. And about 3 years ago, we just moved into the house I live in now, and that was the validation that I had been looking for him forever. And it let me quit looking to him for validation. Thank God. And it had me really go, oh, I could have been. And so many people are.
It's fascinating what you're telling, because it's all coming back always to those stories that we tell each other and that have been told to us. And it's exactly what happened to me in a complete different context, is that at some point where I could have chosen to behave as a victim, I decided to take charge. And from there, everything started completely shifting. So from your perspective, how did you manage to change the stories? Because I think that's something that's really interesting for the listeners, because there's the whole being successful. It's about the business, etc. But the foundation is always the mindset, in fact, and that mindset is created with those stories. So how do you switch that? I know how I switched it, but
so it's really threefold, and I'll just give it to everybody here, so you can write this down and take it if you want to. But it starts with the willingness to accept what is.
Absolutely.
You know, good, bad, ugly, beautiful, amazing, fantastic, whatever it is, accepting what is. The second step was to unblame. So every place that I was blaming people, blaming myself, blaming God, and blaming things. Like I'm putting together a course right now that will come out in a little bit called Funding, because so many people are looking for the money to invest in themselves. You know, so how can you have this funding piece to go on your dream vacation, to step in your dreams, to open your business, to hire a coach, whatever it is? And what I've realized is we have this blame for money. And when my clients look at where they're blaming money for not getting X, Y, or Z, or for hurting them, or for giving somebody power over them, or whatever, like things shift. So where are you blaming? And that's what I mean with things, like blaming things. And then once you take the blame away, the step is forgiveness. And I have a course called Radical Forgiveness. It's my, $47 love gift to the world, basically free. It's 5 modules, and it walks you through the 3 stages of forgiveness. And that's where I had to go within myself to really start opening this up. And for the last 8 years, until I really stepped into the next phase of my dream and my success, which is celebrate you and your own university and self-study and being a leader here and getting to do all the wonderful things I get to do now, like travel and speak and shows and talk to and, have people like you in my community, just hang out with incredible people. And before that, I was known as the trauma transformer because of this deep transpersonal work. But what I found is, yes, it is mindset. And yes, it is mindset. But no, it's not mindset. Oftentimes we focus on just one piece of the dynamics of ourselves. And when we do, we get just as off kilter as when one piece falls apart. So let me explain just a little bit what I mean. So there's six aspects of the self that I've studied over the last now 30 years, which is crazy. That came up the other day. My mom said, it's 30 years now. And I said, oh,
thank you for reminding me.
Right. When did that happen? But let's just say when I was focusing on my physical body, I was healing from cancer. It was all my focus. I was focusing on healing my physical body. What went off? What drew my attention to it was my emotional body. And every time that I went back, because I did go through a period in my marriage where I felt like I needed to be really, really thin and really, really fit. And when I was focusing on my body, what went off? My mind. So when we focus on just one aspect of the dynamics of the self, and I'll explain those 6 areas, we get off even if we're really healthy in that area. If you're just focusing on mindset, 1 or 2 things are going to happen. And it's always the same. It always happens this way. One of the other areas will get completely off kilter and draw your attention to it, so you're not single focused anymore. So your relationships will go nuts, your business won't work out, your physical health will go to crap, something like that, and draw your attention away from this one single focus that you have. Or 2, you will just start feeling like you're not quite living into your purpose. It's not really going downstream. Everything will start being kind of rough and tough. And it doesn't happen to be like, oh, everything else turns really good and great. And why it doesn't happen that way is because the only way that we really listen as human beings in this 3rd dimension is through struggle, is through pain, unfortunately.
Yeah, that's how we learn.
That's how we learn. But we can stop learning and start living when we have a plan and we can pay attention to ourselves in all 6 aspects of our life. And those aspects I got from studying yoga as an ERYT 500 and going deep into the Yoga Sutras and the 5 sheaths of the body, studying medicine and psychology and the physical body and how we're layered. And also I learned it from my personal journey and my personal walk and reflecting on it, and spirit, God, my heart, whatever you want to call it, saying this is what you're supposed to teach.
Mm-hmm.
And then working with thousands of people around the world over the last 10 years to balance these out. And then, I mean, life gets in flow. So you have to equally focus on, how do I take care of my physical health? Your physical body, your temple. This is your house. 2, your emotions. How do you feel? For a survivor, for me, I didn't know how to be happy. I didn't know how to be wealthy.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't focusing on the negative stuff that was hard. Like, I had pissed off down pat. Now, what didn't even scare me, it actually was kind of a comfort zone for me. But I didn't know happy. I didn't know elated. I didn't know joy. I still get to a point when I'm running my energy and feeling it where it's like, oh my gosh, can life get that good? You know, and it's like, that's my push now. It's a fun place to be. But I have to be in that zone every day. So I have tools for that, for people that want to know them. 3, how do you think? Controlling your mind, getting your mindset in check. Your emotions call in your destiny to you. It's like a magnet. Your emotional body is your magnet.
Yeah.
And your thoughts are your steering wheel to create those emotions.
Absolutely.
You know? Yeah. So this is manifesting. 4, your relationship to spirit both within you and that omnipotent present above, however you want to explain it.
Mm-hmm.
And having that personal relationship is so very important. Now, how do you define that for yourself? 5 is who you are in relationships. We often study relationship from this place of finding out what other people want, how we can show up for others, how we can show up for others. How do you do this? You know, what do you want in a man? Let's study the man. What do you want in a best friend? Study the best friend. Well, all of it comes together. And I hear it all over and over again from relationship coaches, that when we know who we are. So how do you want to show up in a relationship?
Completely.
When we decide what kind of parent we want to be, what kind of employee we want to be, or business owner, or what kind of, you know, then we show up as us in at all times. We're ourselves. And when we're not, because that happens, we know it. So there's no blame, you know. Magic happens in a relationship. And the next place is purpose. We all have a purpose. We all have this desire and this need for security and wealth and abundance in purpose and success. And so what does that mean to you? How do you define it for yourself? What barriers are you looking at to take down for yourself? And how can you live more into your purpose? And your purpose doesn't necessarily mean where you make money.
No, fully agree. It's funny because we had never had that discussion, and in fact I see that we are very much aligned, because I was mentioning mindset, but definitely mindset is for me only a piece, and the program that I have developed is completely holistic, so definitely it's covering all those topics, and there is not one piece that can be missing, which is de facto the reason why I have now chosen not to work with people who want to work on a piece only. You know, like you can say at some point, I want to work on my business, or I want to work on my relationship to success and money. And I have chosen not to. It's everything or nothing, because it won't work. You will get a boomerang effect at some point if you don't. Yeah,
Exactly. And that's Divine in Nine, that's Amazing You. That's all of my programs except the Rising Star program, which is all about visibility and getting your message out and doing all of this beautiful stuff as part of the mission. But that's why at Your Own University, we have the 6 categories, because there's different times where you recognize, oh, I'm really balanced in all of these areas. This area is kicking my tush right now.
Yeah.
And so I need to focus on it. I'm going to get support here. And then another area might get off balance. But if you're aware of the mom,
that's it. Exactly.
That's it. So you start developing your life around every day, spending some time focusing on these aspects of yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. So let's rewind a little bit in that process, because the women who are listening are also looking at what is holding them back, what is, forcing them, or they think forcing them not to go after the dreams. What are the type of challenges that you have encountered in the process of setting up your business?
Besides the cancer and depression
and yes,
all of that.
I mean, from a business perspective, has there been something particular?
Absolutely. And it comes back to this place where it's all inclusive. Mm-hmm. It's, my business, when you open up your own business, it's just like marrying somebody or being in a deep relationship with somebody. It starts reflecting you and showing you where you need to clean up your trash. Mm-hmm. For better or for worse, for richer or poor, for sickness and health, in sickness and health. So my businesses have grown, have morphed. So this message, this calling started with me singing jazz and just going into expression and making a CD and promoting jazz companies or jazz bands in San Francisco while teaching yoga and wellness. So that's where it started. Mm-hmm. And my yoga students would come and tell me their stories, and I'd be like, oh, I can help you with that. And then I became a nutritionalist. Oh, I can help you with that. And it was very much about them coming home to their bodies. And then all of a sudden it was like, let's step deeper into this. And I opened up a yoga studio here in Alaska. And oh my goodness, talk about managing people and micromanaging. And it was like the best and the worst experience ever, because I learned through experience. And what I didn't do that was detrimental and deadly is I didn't hire a coach.
Good point.
I didn't hire anybody that had already done it. I talked to my friends who had studios and, every once in a while, but I didn't have anybody in my corner with me looking at my strategy and saying, okay, this is how you handle this situation. I had a lot of opinions.
Yeah.
But nobody really knew the depth of what was happening in the studio to help me learn what I didn't know. So I really got a beautiful gift in that, where as soon as I closed down my physical studio, I still had a small studio. I was teaching Divine in Nine and doing teacher trainings in, but it turned into, from a 25, 50 person studio, which isn't huge, but we had multiple classes, to 4 classes a week, a teacher training, and 10 people at a time, So it turned into a definitely different model. But then I hired my first coach. And we took the program online. And I went into my first mastermind. I invested $15,000 into my business that year, which basically was the rent money that I spent at the other space.
Oh, yes, of course.
So that transition wasn't too hard for me, because that's something that a lot of people I know have to hurdle over. So if you are listening and you're a coach and you're in business and you're working from your home office, you don't have inventory, you're creating your own products, you're creating your own services, here's my biggest tip for you. If you had a business, any business, retail, or you had a studio, or you're renting a space to be a psychiatrist, and in it, you are paying rent, and you're paying for inventory, and you're paying insurance, if you have employees and everything,
Yeah.
all of these expenses we don't have, but we still need the business loan or whatever you need to hire the coach that is going to be in your corner, that's going to understand your business so you can get your stuff out into the world and get your message out. And we don't look at it that way. We think a lot of times, I work with a lot of new inspiring coaches that are ready to, well, they're not necessarily new coaches, but they're ready to take it up a level. They're ready to write a book. They're ready to create a bigger program. They're ready to have a TV show or ready to have a radio show. And some of them are brand new. They've just been at it a long time, you know, and others are really established. And one of the big hurdles is, but I don't have the money. I have to do it all myself. And no, you don't. You have a business. Go get a business
all
loan.
the time.
Yeah, you have a business. Go get a business loan, just like you would if you had to pay rent for the first year.
That's a very good point. It's interesting because, well, to start with all those interviews, there are some repeating patterns, of course. So this is a topic that comes back very, very regularly. Yeah. And I know for myself that when I was living in France and I was starting off, the major difference for me then was that business coaching wasn't existing. They were 15 years behind, and so it was only for executives, etc. And so I didn't even know it was existing. But I would have loved, it would have saved me so many years. But I like really very much the way you approach it. It's an angle that makes it, it makes you see it from a different angle. And that's a very, very good point.
Perspective is everything. Absolutely. I mean, that is my book, From Bondage to Happiness, is perspective.
Absolutely. But I never thought of that one.
Yeah, if we switch our perspective just a little bit, it's like, So anyway, I quit. I quit running the business. I invested the money that I would have invested anyway into hiring a coach. I started traveling. I started stepping into my dreams. I started looking at what I desired. And for me, pleasure, desire, I hadn't done that yet.
Yeah.
6 years ago, 7 years ago, whenever it was, I hadn't gone there yet. And so, or maybe it's just 5 years ago. So I went there. I got to go there. And as a magnet, as an energy being, as somebody who understood the vibrational patterns of my own body, I started to call in the reality that I desire. And when I was 7 years old, I had a vision of me on a stage that was a stadium filled with, 1 million people, literally. And I was standing there, and there was no band behind me. It's been the same vision. Now I can feel it and see it. But I used to think I was going to be a rock star. Like literally, I went to school for voice and singing. I've been singing my whole life. I have a jazz CD. I thought I'm going to be a rock star. And that's what that's all about. And then I tried to let it go. I was praying, Lord, just let it go, just let it go. Don't give me that vision when I ask what I'm going to do with my life. Don't give me a vision like that anymore. You give me something else. And I didn't get anything else ever. I've never gotten anything else. And so I started asking really powerful questions. Like, all right, so if that's where I'm going, what do I do now? What's my step today? Instead of, oh, how, but what's my step today? And that transformed into, all of a sudden I was writing books. All of a sudden Antiqua, who can't write, who, missed everything in 4th and 5th grade trying to survive. So grammar wasn't her thing. All of a sudden has an editor and 5 books, like, what? Antiqua, who can't put 2 sentences together and speaks in circles, is all of a sudden speaking. Is all of a sudden her show is picked up by a syndicated radio program. All of a sudden, all these things started happening. And I opened up Your Own University years ago, 5 years ago, and laid the platform and did all the legal stuff for it. Let it go because nobody understood what it was. Nobody got it. I didn't know how to explain the 6 personal power zones yet. I didn't know how to explain what I was. And all I knew is it wasn't about me. It wasn't about me. So I woke up last July when my ex left, and God said, here it is. Now it's time. Go get that website, put it up. And within a week it was up. I started contacting.
Because everything was already there, in fact.
Everything was already there. And I started contacting my friends that I'd interviewed and respected and loved and said, here's this. It's a directory. This is how much it is to be involved. This is my vision for it. I want it to be a win-win. I want it to be a mastermind of coaches in the back, really supporting one another to support our clients in the best possible way. And how we make money is we sell each other's programs. And so we are developing more and more abundance for one another. We'll host events, we'll have TV, we'll have radio. And I started putting it all together. Now we just got our TV channel. We just got picked up last week by a network.
Congratulations.
Thank you. So that's going to open up for coaches to have their own shows.
Yes, of course.
And mid-November is where we're looking at. Because I knew I didn't want to do it. I didn't want to learn the systems in the back and do everything.
No.
I just have the platform. Yeah. So when the time's right, the means is going to come, and the means came. And it's so it's unfolding. It's unfolding. Would I like to be on that big stage with everybody in front of me and going, yes, and have, the teachers speaking behind me and
you're 7 years,
day and everything. Right. Am I want that yesterday, 10 years ago? Yeah, of course. But it's divine timing. And what I see now is the team. It's not me. So for instance, everybody, when we go to Europe, and yes, we'll be on stage because she is a coach with us, and she'll be speaking and telling her message, and she'll be celebrating you with us. And I will have people with Your Own University, coaches all over the world. We have coaches for you everywhere that you're located. So if you want somebody personal and physical, you probably can find somebody right now at Your Own University in your area. And if you don't care, you can find a great coach anywhere, and we all Skype,
Absolutely.
So you will have that arena. So yeah, we can have people fly in, but we'll have hometown people where we hold our events, all celebrating our clients, our people, our community, and loving it. And this is my vision, and this is my trademark, and this is what I'm doing. And this is the dream that's stepping into. So when you ask me, what are the obstacles that you've run into? Investing in myself was one, not hiring a coach early enough was one. But the other is waiting and time. Because when I was writing my first couple books, it sure as hell didn't feel like I was going anywhere towards my dream, because they didn't sell like a bazillion, but you don't really make money off of books. It was like this big thing. They were touching people's lives and sending me some clients, but it wasn't like, the Holy Grail, And I have my coaching business. I have a nonprofit, the Game Changers Movement, where we're working against violence and changing technology to really infuse the whole community of people in the world solving world problems. And we're developing that. So, I have a 3-legged stool, a 4-legged stool, because I'm here. Somebody told me that the other day.
That's a good point.
Don't forget about you. So I have a 4-legged stool. Thank you for reminding me of that myself, because I've been saying 3 legs, but I have a 4-legged stool with a solid foundation, and all going to the same direction. But do I want it to happen yesterday? Yes. And that's a struggle. However, I have to face my own lack money issues. I have to face my own, can I handle this? Can I lead this big issues? I have to face, can I handle this much joy? You know, can I really like, oh my gosh, I'm going to lead 1 million people at a time, you know, more than 1 million people, but 1 million people at a time in a heart-centered meditation, and then ask them to hug one another and see one another for a minute. Oh my gosh, talk about raising the vibration of our planet. This is my vision I get to take out into the world. Am I really worthy of this? Am I a fraud? You know, so all of that story, all of that old news, all of that little girl who was
we all have it.
I have to deal with. And it's about the commitment, everybody. It's about committing to yourself to deal with it. Some days I have to lay in bed all day because it's so heavy.
Yeah, I can imagine. Antiqua, I have to shorten. I could listen to you for hours.
No, I'm good. I'm done. That was it.
The show is officially half an hour. We're over the 30 minutes, but it's just fascinating. So thank you so much. Tell us where people can find you, and I will place that on.
Yeah, absolutely. So for my personal coaching and to learn all about me personally, I have a very special gift for you there too. It is a book that I wrote with Diadio Moses about really loving yourself and pampering yourself and giving you tons of tips, 237 tips to absolutely loving yourself. And you can actually get that both places at the moment. But it's antiqualisha.com, antiqualisha.com. ANTIQUALISHA.com. So you can get that there, learn all about the programs. If you are a coach and you're an empowerment coach or a personal development coach in one of those 6 pillars, and you want to be a part of an amazing group with people like me and run your own amazing company and have your own missions like Yes does too, really be supported there, please join us at yourownuniversity.org. And if you are looking for a coach in one of those 6 areas and you have one area that you really want to focus on, please look at our coaches there. We have 63 of the most amazing people I've ever met in the world and growing. And we have their programs, their evergreen programs that you can get instantly. We have their books in our bookstore. It's just a wealth of information for you, and that's yourownuniversity.com.
Thank you so much, Antiqua. Thank you so much. This was fascinating. And well, we will definitely talk again. So, and thank you for our listeners. So if you want to share this interview, it will be hosted on my website, agnesvanrijn.com, ANYESVANRHIJN.com for a week. And after the week, it will be pushed aside, of course, with the next guest, but it will be moved to the archives, and the archive page can be accessed as well through an opt-in. So thank you so much for listening.
Thank you.
Talk to you next week. Thank you, Antiqua. Bye.